Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. If you've been watching this channel or the last couple videos or since I've moved to North Carolina, you have heard me say that there is going to be one official first project that I'm doing in the new shop. Well, today is that day. And it's a simple project. It's a couple hour project depending on how complicated you want to make it. But let me give you a brief backstory. Right before I moved, a woman up in the Bradford area gave me a large amount of rough cut cherry lumber. It was a tree that came down in her yard. Her husband had a sawmill brought in, cut it up, stacked it, sticked it, and covered it. And I mean covered it well. And it sat there for 15 to 20 years. And I said, do you know what this is worth? You know, you could sell this. And she said, I don't care. She wasn't worried about the money. She said, you know what? Make me a cross. So today's the day. I'm making her a cross. In proper woodworking style, I have overthought this and overcomplicated it, or at least I'm going to try to. My miter saw is still not 100% right. I'm waiting on one more part to come in, so that is out of play. I'm not going to be able to use a miter saw on this. And my biggest problem is not the geometry, but like, where does the crossbeam go? Is there a specific formula? Is it 2/3 of the upright? Is it 3/4 of the upright? What is it? Does anybody actually know? If you do math, you probably do, which I don't. So here's what I did. If you've got a computer, leave the math book at home. I printed off a standard, simple Christian cross. That's what you're going to type into your old Google search. Christian cross simple. And that's what it'll give you. That is a perfect outline. My original intention was to cut this out of one piece, just have one piece cross all the way through. The more I got to thinking about it, my bandsaw is not great. And I will have a booger of a time trying to clean up the edges and making them sharp. And so what I've decided to do is I'm going to go ahead and half lap it on the table saw, since aforementioned miter saw is not in service. So this is roughly the size that I want to make it, at least the bones of it. Then we're going to add some accents to it, because why not? So the first thing I need to do, I went ahead and put, you can't see it, I don't think, but I went ahead and put my joiner and my planer back together finely. So I took a piece of that rough cut lumber that she gave me and milled it up, and then I let it sit so that if it wanted to act up, it would do it overnight. It hasn't acted up. It's still perfectly flat and straight. So we're going to go ahead and start cutting. This, like I said, this is the lumber that she gave me. So I think I'm going to take a quick measurement, because I want what's going to happen is I'm going to accent around the outside of it. I'm not going to go crazy. There are some very elaborate cross builds that you can do, and I'm not going to get that crazy, but I want to border it with a darker cherry wood that someone else gave me, and maybe put an accent in the middle. That's all we're going to do. I do want to extend the bottom, and then maybe cut that down about 1/8 inch all the way down, because I want this to be able to sit into a base that I will also have to make. Which means probably I'll have to get out chisels. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to start by cutting this. I'm going to get the measurement of the thickness of that, because I know that that's kind of the base that I want. And then we'll start cutting strips, get the old crosscut sled out, and we'll start half lapping, and we'll go from there. So while I said that I did set up my joiner and my planer is not set up quite as well as what it was before. And so I'm getting quite a bit more snipe than what I got before. And that's okay. I always plan for that, because snipe happens. We should make a t-shirt. Snipe happens. Okay, I don't care what kind of planer you got, it's almost always there. So, and the fact that mine comes from Harbor Freight means it's going to be even worse. And I've done some things to combat that. I just didn't take the time to really fine tune it. I have a one-piece bed coming in and out and all of that. And I had it set up before to where I had almost no snipe. So anyway, long story short, I'm going to cut that out and square this up at the same time. And basically, I'm going to line my pieces up on here and mark where I need to cut my half laps. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut up, get the lengths cut up that I need, and then we'll figure out half laps from there. So what I'm doing is basically just using the picture of the cross that I have as sort of a layout. My measurements are not exactly to what this cross is, but I can still use it to make sure everything is straight. And I'm basically just lining that up to that, mark it, and I know that's where my upright's coming through. I've already done the same thing with the upright and the cross piece. The pieces I'm using are 1 inch in thickness, so I know that I need a 1/2 inch out of here and a 1/2 inch out of here. I'm actually going to go a smidgen lower and kind of sneak up on that just to alleviate any sanding I got to do later. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out and we'll move on. Okay, so we have our half laps in. I could clean them up a little bit, you know, because like I said before, my saw blade's not a flat top blade, so I get a ridged cut. I'm not overly concerned about it. The fit seems to be really nice. I mean, it's not going to take much at all. I'm going to have to glue this and let it sit overnight, which is going to make this a 2-day project, because I don't want to nail it and stuff like that. Now, how am I going to overcomplicate it? Well, here's how I'm going to overcomplicate it. A really nice gentleman from the church has this Brazilian cherry running all through his house. It's absolutely gorgeous. And he did the install himself, which more power to him. I used to do that for a living. That's work. Anyway, so I have a few pieces of this that he gave me. And what I'd like to do is basically just outline the outer perimeter of the cross with this. Now, here's my problem. This is 3/4 of an inch thick, which is standard hardwood flooring. It's all, if you get real wood, not pictures of wood, it's all 3/4 of an inch thick. So what I'm going to have to do is cut this on the long way to get pieces wide enough to trim this. And again, I have 3/4 of an inch that are going into a base, and so I can only come down to that point. And I want these to be mitered corner. I'm trying to overcomplicate this, but that's, you know, what that's what I do. So I'm going to get this glued up, and even while this is waiting to dry, I can take some measurements and figure out my pieces and get that all going. And then we'll start gluing that on. And already we're almost done. So that's the next step. Let me get this thing in. The one thing that I do want to pay attention to is I don't want a whole lot of squeeze out in the corners. There are some ways, I'm looking around to see if I have any. There are some ways that you can alleviate that. It's still in a box. Give me a second. Well, what I was going to say is get you some blue painter's tape or green painter's tape or masking tape, whatever. Apparently, I don't have any, or my wife stole it off of me and she's using it in her studio in the basement. And that's what we're going to do, is blame it on her. So I do have some packing tape. the thing is what you want to do is just put this in the corner so when you glue it out, if there is squeeze out, it's going to go to the tape and not on the wood. So I'll go ahead and get this wrapped. Maybe, or maybe I won't. You know, depends. Depends on how difficult this is. You know what? Now that, now that I'm thinking about it, there's going to be a piece going around the perimeter, so I don't actually have to worry about that, thank God, because this stuff's obviously garbage. I do want to get some on the sides. Same dealio on this side. That's probably enough. And let's use the old finger spreader. And of course, just to torture myself. Sweet. All right, I think I'm just going to grab one of these. Oh, then I got a rubber flicky on it. Get on there. There we go. Get some of my Harbor Freight clamps. And I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on there because I don't need a whole lot, because that half lap's going to take care of a lot. We're going to double check for square, and we're good. Okay, next step is taking some measurements so that I can cut the pieces for the perimeter. I have to include mitered corners in my measurements, so I'm just going to cut all of them long, and I'll put them in piece by piece as I go. So the next thing I got to do is cut that piece of Brazilian cherry down in such a way. I'm going to have to resaw it, essentially, is what I'm going to have to do, which is my favorite thing to do on my table saw. You got to do what you got to do, right? So that's the next step. So there is a way I can make this a little less sketchy, and that is to not try and resaw the entire board. Okay, this looks to be a 3-inch board face to face, 3 1/4. Which again makes a beautiful floor, my word. So I have to cut the tongue or the groove out because there's obviously hardwood flooring, tongue and groove. I am going to start by cutting the groove off of it, and then from there I'll measure my width, and then that way when I'm only cutting that width and not a 3 1/2. You see what I'm saying? I'm not cutting the whole deal. I'm just cutting what I need. That's what I'm trying to say. Oops, gonna go here. Golly, that sun's really bright. Holy moly. Okay, so with my thickness cut now, like I said, instead of cutting a 3 1/2-inch board, I'm laying this down this way, running that through the saw instead of trying to resaw a 3 1/2-inch board. Look for solutions. You know, I guess that's my point here. I would like these to be a 1/4 inch thick. So we're going to bring this down 1/4 inch. And that's going to be really sketchy. But I think we'll be able to do that. Aside from some burning, which you're going to get with cherry, especially if you're cutting slow and scary like me. I got some burning there. That's okay. That'll clean up. Hardwood floors have little grooves that run on the bottom side of it. Okay, and that didn't all come out, and that's fine as well, because that can go against the main body of the cross, like so, and you're not going to see it. So now we're down to 45s, and for that, we got to use a table saw because that's what I got, and I don't want to use my old miter saw because it's not 100% accurate. But I did just recently put a jig back together that's going to help greatly. So let me get that out. Okay, you might remember this, or you might not because it looks different now. This is my picture frame jig. I talked about this in the video from last year. What I have done is instead of, I had a really bad piece of plywood and it was actually affecting how it was being cut. Well, since I redid my tabletop, I have quite a bit of melamine left, and it's a far more stable, far more flat wood. So I've rebuilt it on a piece of melamine, so everything should come out straight and flat, and as it should. Now, my only problem with this is that I'm going to have to cut my 45s with this piece standing upright. And I mean, that'll work. I just have to go slow and be careful, which isn't my normal go-to. We're going to raise the blade up to where I need it. Kind of like that. And we're going to go a little bit higher. Okay. Because Stumpy Nub said, go a little bit higher on the blade. I remember him saying that. I don't remember why. Less of the blade in the wood at one time. I don't know. I don't remember why. So let me get, you know what? For the first cut, I'm not going to bother turning the dust collector on because it's one cut. And it's very thin wood. So we're going to set this up like this. And it doesn't really matter where we cut the 45. I'm not going to waste a bunch of wood is what I'm not wanting to do. So we're going to kick this on. I never stand directly behind the blade when I do this, because when this piece falls, you don't know where it's going to go. Pretty nice. Now, you could do math, but I don't. I'm just going to set that in there. Okay, that's my 45. Then I'm going to make sure it's straight. Come around here, make it as complicated as I can. Get a pencil that writes. And I'm just going to mark it there. When I pull that off, that's my mark. I know that needs to be 45'd. In fact, what I'm even going to do is draw the direction that I need of the 45. Okay. That way, conceivably, I can't mess up. Right. Now, this is going a direction, the same direction as the other one, because I flipped it that way. And I'm going to want to make sure that I'm cutting this on this side. And it's not something I'm going to be able to trim if I get it wrong. So I kind of need to get it on the first shot. Yeah, no stress. So I'm going to bring this up to the blade. And I know that right there is where I want that. Now, provided nothing moves, we'll be all right. Okay, so that's going on there like that. My 45 is dead on the edge of that. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these cut up, and I'm just going to go around. Is all I got to do. Just go around the whole thing. You could butt joint this, but I just think the 45s, the miter corners are going to look better. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, then we're ready to glue this on, and then we're down to sanding. I have to figure out how I want to finish this. Keep that in mind. So after much cutting and trimming and sanding of miters, I have it pretty close. I have it close enough that I think I can start gluing. My recommendation here is dry fit everything first, because there's nothing worse than gluing something up and going, oh, that's too long, that don't fit, and then you're basically starting over. So that's where I'm at. Time to start gluing, and I hopefully can get this all clamped together. We'll see how that goes. Well, that's just about as many clamps as I can get on that. I believe that every single surface is clamped as best as I can tell. And now we just wait for it to dry. Tomorrow is not a day that I can work on this. Maybe Saturday we'll get out here and sand it and finish it. Oh, I have to build a base. Yeah, that'll be on Saturday. We'll build a base for it. All right. See you folks on Saturday. Okay. It is Saturday. My hat's falling apart. It's Saturday. Didn't come out to the shop on Friday. Went to a concert, actually. My first ever winter jam. Man, was that a blast. Went with the youth group. That was way cool. But anyway, took this out of clamps. Everything looks all right, per se. If I'm being honest, I'm going to have a little bit of filling to do on my 45s because this one could have been a smidgen long. Anyway, that don't matter. I can fill that. I can make that look all right. Before I go crazy sanding this, I think I want to concentrate on the base. Golly Moses, it's cold in here. I got the heater fired up, but I didn't fire it up earlier enough, and it snowed this morning. I'm done with that. Anyway, I still got a chunk of that original cherry that she gave me. I still have a couple strips of the Brazilian cherry. And I think what I'm going to do is basically make a simple base and outline it like I did here. Just, I guess you would call this the northwestern Pennsylvania cherry surrounded with the Brazilian cherry. So I'm going to go ahead and get that figured out and we'll move on. So here's my base. I know it looks pretty plain. Just pump the brakes, okay? It's square. I'm going to dress it up a little bit. I don't know how yet, but we'll get there. What I've done, I just picked an arbitrary size. I held this up and went, yeah, that looks good. It's good enough. Found the middle both ways. This is my base. That is 1 inch by 1 inch exactly. I don't know how that happened. Some woodworkers would say I planned it that way. I did not. I just mill it down till it's smooth, and that's where I ended up at. So 1 inch by 1 inch, drew it out in the middle. I have to hollow this out. I don't have all the cool stuff to do that. So we'll figure out a way to do that. I might have to find my chisels, which I think are up there. And I'm going to drill out as much as I can. I don't have my drill press set up. It's over there now. I don't have my drill press set up yet, which is going to, be a bummer a little bit. But I'll hand drill it out. It's fine. And then we'll just kind of chisel it out, smooth it out. And we'll just take a little bit at a time till that fits. See, folks, this is why I don't use hand tools very often. It fits nice, except for that, 1/8 inch gap up there. That's okay. Like I said before, find solutions. Okay, so my simple solution was just to cut a thin strip and glue it in there. And that's going to take up that difference, and then I can fill that little bit that's left. I couldn't fill the gap that was there. It was too big, and that cross actually had to set in there. So I just added a thin strip. We'll fill that. When we sand it, it'll be great. So that quick little fix kind of puts me out of order a little bit because I had some routing I wanted to do to that. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded down. Once that dries, I can run it through the router and get it shaped the way I want it shaped. Get that sanded and filled and everything that has to happen with that. Hand tools. Hand tools. That's all I'm going to say. Hand tools. So anyway, that's fine. We can keep moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and sand this. Get this ready to go. Still thinking about finish. Oh, there's something over there that I've never used before. What do you guys know about tongue oil? What is it? I've never used it before. I don't know why it's over there. Maybe I'll read it and see. It says Minwax on it. That's a finish, right? I don't know. Tell me what you know about tung oil. What do I use this for? Because if not, I'd like to use oil-based polyurethane because that's what I know and that's what I love. But I don't know. We also want to make this pop. So let me know, what do you think I should be using here? Okay, so I've got that looking a lot better. All I did was cut a thin strip, glue it in there, and then went over the whole cross. Did the old glue sand filler trick, and it looks pretty good. Now, I could just call it done, right? This is already sanded, it's all ready to go, but I'm afraid the base just looks a little bit boring. So I think I'm just gonna router a little design in it and see if we can just dress it up a little bit. So this is a little bit terrifying, not really, I mean, but this is the first time I'm using my router since I put it in the table saw. I have no idea what to expect. I've not even plugged it in and tried it yet. I put in a bit that I use on a lot of my picture frames. It's probably my favorite one. And I'm gonna take a couple small bites at this and then get the actual profile. I need an extension cord because that plug's too far away. But we'll get that set up and we'll see. I'm going to turn it on first and just kind of let it think about it and see if it falls out. You know, stuff like that. Well, I turned it on. Nothing flew apart. It looks cockeyed in there. I'm sure it's just my imagination or the fact that I cut that hole. I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and try it and see. This is my top side, which is going down. A couple small bites, like I said. I'm just going to hang on to it and hope for the best. Well, I didn't die. Still got 10. And I'm going slow, which is leaving an immense amount of burning, which means I'm going to have to sand and that type of thing. So I'm going to jack this up to the rest of the profile, go ahead and run this through now that I know that I'm safe-ish, kind of. Hadn't fallen out yet. We'll get this detailed and sanded, and then we're ready to stick this thing together. So there it is, 2 coats of tung oil, and I think it looks beautiful. Yes, there were challenges along the way, but like I said, find solutions. I can't wait to get this in the mail, get it shipped to the person that's supposed to have it, the person that wonderfully gave me all of that cherry wood. Folks, I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed it. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next one.